Hi, Gemma here. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. So, in the last episode of the road to the Great Tribulation, or the road to Tribulation, I think it was part 6 or thereabouts. Not too sure. We'll find out soon enough. Anyway, so I spoke about um, the what is written in verses 29 to 31 of Matthew chapter 24, and how that it does not refer to the rapture. Instead, it refers to the gathering of the Jewish elect, um, and why that works, and where we find references for that in the Bible. And if you want to see that video, if you didn't watch it, then um, I'll place the links below, or you'll find it in the playlist. So I've created a playlist so that you can see everything together if you want, if you wish. Okay, so there's 3 parts to what we have left. Now I'm going to try to finish all of them in the context of just this episode. If I can't, I'll split them apart as I've mentioned before. But these 3 parts are not incredibly difficult. They are you'll find them in verses 32 to 35, which talks about the parable of the fig tree, and this generation shall not pass away, and exactly what does that mean, and how it can cause confusion. And then you have verses 36 down to 44, which talks about no one knows the day or the hour, and one will be taken and one will be left behind, which I'll deal with there. And then lastly, verses 45 to 51, which talks about preparation and readiness. So I'll read very quickly verses 32 to 35. It says, "Now learn the parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, you know that summer is nigh. So likewise you, when you shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away." Now, technically speaking, this should not be controversial, but what I'm about to say may seem controversial to many because, unfortunately, it's not exactly a commonly held opinion. Perhaps it is, just I've not heard it commonly said. And if it is commonly said, then thank God, because it should not be a controversial viewpoint at all. Usually when people read, or when people have tried to explain Matthew 24 verse 32, and when Jesus says, "Now learn the parable of the fig tree," many people make this assertion, they make this statement that the fig tree there in verse 32 is referring to Israel, the nation Israel as we know it today. And then they go back to 1948 when Israel not only came into the land, but when they received their independence and they became a nation. I think it was May 1st or May 11th, 1948, sometime May 1948. And they start to count dates on the basis of that event of 1948 when Israel becomes a nation. And they assume that everything from there is referring to Israel in that respect, and then they go on about it. And I'm not going to burn your time by rehashing the things that they usually say. What I will tell you is that when Jesus said, "Now learn the parable of the fig tree," Jesus was literally saying, learn the parable of a fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is nigh. The sense in which Jesus is speaking there is the same sense that he speaks in Matthew chapter 16. From verse 1 to 3, it says, "The Pharisees also with the Sadducees came, and tempting desired him that he would show them a sign from heaven. He answered and said unto them, When it is evening, you say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. When it is evening, you say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red." In other words, it's talking about their ability to observe and draw conclusions. In verse 3, it says, "And in the morning it will be foul weather today, for the sky is red and lowring." So on 2 different days, one in the morning and one in the evening, the weather is the same color, red, but depending on whether you see it in the evening or in the morning, it tells you whether the day will be good or bad. So in verse 2, it says, "He answered and said unto them, When it is evening, you say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning it will be foul weather today, for the sky is red and lowering. O ye hypocrites, you can discern the face of the sky, but can you not discern the signs of the times?" The point I am making here is that when Jesus talks about learning the parable of the fig tree, when his branch is yet tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is nigh. It's just like Jesus said if it was in Aberdeen or somewhere in the United Kingdom, and he says, when in the month of March you see the, oh gosh, Lord forgive me, what is the name of these flowers that they spring with these yellow, bright yellow flowers? I forget their names. Is it tulips? Are they tulips? I don't remember now. For some reason, the name of the flower has escaped my head. But the point is, when you see that flower sprouting, you know that summer is on the way. You know that we have left winter, we're into spring, and summer is on the way. And it's in the same sense that Jesus is speaking here. And so it goes on in verse 33. So likewise ye, when ye shall see these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. This generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. Look at verse 33. So likewise ye, when you shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Know that what is near. Notice something. The disciples did not ask him, what on earth do you mean by it is near? You have to remember that this is all part of a conversation. It is popularly called the Olivet Discourse, right? This is the conversation they had on the Mount of Olives. And if you go back to verse 1, 2, and 3, or in particular verse 3, it says, and as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the age, or of the end of the world? In other words, what I'm saying is, when Jesus says in verse 33, so likewise ye, when you shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. In other words, all these things I have been talking about since verse 4, 5, after he had said, see to it that you're not deceived, all the things that he had mentioned, the wars, the rumors of wars, the pestilence, the things to do with the gathering of the elect, and so on. He says, when you see these things, know that the end is near, even at the door. That's all it is. And that's why he says, the generation that sees this event, this generation, not his contemporaries. Jesus is not referring to those who were alive when he was alive. He's referring to that generation that will see these things. In verse 34, verily I say unto you, this generation, that particular generation that will see these things, will not pass. In other words, it will not end, it will not die off till all these things be fulfilled. Why? Because these things are going to be fulfilled quickly. Remember, these things are going to take place in the context of a 7-year period, and in particular, the end of these things, by the time these things are over, there's no way generation is going to die out, and so on. Anyway, the point I'm making is, number one, the fig tree is not referring to Israel. The fig tree was a figurative statement Jesus was using to explain the fact that the same way you can look at a fig tree, and in the context of how its leaves are blooming and they're tender and so on, you can tell that summer is on its way. Jesus is saying, when you see all the signs that he has described from about verse 5, 6, all the way to verse 31, when you look at all those signs, when you see those signs, then know, according to what he says there in verse 33, so likewise, when you shall see these signs, know that it is near, even at the doors. That's all it is. I'll stop there, and then I'll do another one for verse 36 down to 44. God bless you.